It was a quiet, sunlit morning when the engines shattered the peace of Maple Ridge. The diner windows trembled as the bikers rolled into the gravel lot, their shadows stretching long across the pavement. The air was thick with exhaust and curiosity. Inside, forks froze mid-air. Conversations stopped. The waitress, a young woman with dark hair tied back in a loose ponytail, set down a coffee pot and tried to steady her trembling hands. Her name tag read Mara. The leader walked in first. His boots hit the linoleum floor with the heavy certainty of a man who'd seen too much. Rex Malone didn't need to speak to own a room. His presence did it for him, the kind of silence that carried its own authority. He took a seat by the window. Mara approached, her voice barely above a whisper as she asked what he wanted. "Just coffee," he said, his voice rough like gravel but not unkind. When she leaned forward to pour, he saw it, a bruise beneath her jawline, faint but unmistakable, half hidden beneath a layer of foundation. It wasn't just a mark. It was a story, one Rex knew too well. For a moment, his mind flashed back years before. Another woman. Another bruise. Someone he loved and couldn't save. The memory hit him like the kick of an engine, sharp and painful. He forced his gaze away, but it was too late. The past had found him again. Mara's hands trembled as she set down his cup. Her polite smile cracked for half a second before she turned away. Rex watched her glide back behind the counter, her movements careful, almost rehearsed. Then came the voice, loud, sharp, slicing through the hum of the diner. "Mara." The man behind the counter, the manager, glared at her, his face red and mean. "You spill that coffee again and you're paying for it." The words were thick with control, not anger. Control was worse. It was the kind of tone that said this wasn't the first time. Rex didn't move. Didn't speak. But something deep in his chest stirred, something he hadn't felt in years. The day dragged on. The bikers laughed, cracked jokes, filled the place with noise. But Rex stayed quiet, lost in thought. When the lunch rush ended, he remained at the counter, pretending to sip the last of his coffee. That's when it happened again. The manager brushed past Mara, hard enough to make her spill a tray of dishes. The sound of shattering plates silenced the room. She whispered, "I'm sorry." The man's reply came like a whip, "You always are." Rex's jaw clenched. He'd seen enough. That night, back in his garage, he sat under the flicker of a single neon bulb. The smell of oil and steel filled the air. Around him, his club brothers drank and laughed, the music loud. But Rex didn't hear any of it. His mind was still at that diner. At that bruise. At the look in Mara's eyes, the look of someone who'd given up hope that anyone would ever stand up for her. He'd once sworn never to get involved again. But sometimes the past doesn't let you keep your promises. By sunrise, his decision was made. When Mara arrived early the next morning, the rumble of engines was already waiting for her. The diner's lot glimmered with chrome. Every biker from Rex's club was there, lined up like an army. Inside, the air felt different, heavier. Rex sat at the counter again, same seat, same coffee. When she approached, he looked up. "You okay?" he asked quietly. Her smile faltered. "Yes, I'm fine." But her voice shook. Before she could turn, Rex said, "You don't have to lie." Her breath caught. Tears welled up before she could stop them. The clatter of a door opening made her flinch. The manager stormed out, his face twisted in anger. "What's going on here?" he barked. Rex stood up. Slowly. Calmly, the entire diner went silent. The bikers behind him rose to their feet, a wall of leather and steel. The manager's voice faltered. Rex took a step closer. "You like hurting people who can't fight back?" he asked. His voice was soft, too soft. It was the kind of calm that made a man sweat. The manager tried to sneer. "You don't know what you're talking about." Rex leaned forward. "I know exactly what I'm talking about." For a long moment, the only sound was the hum of the ceiling fan. Then, quietly, Rex said, "You think that makes you powerful?" It doesn't. It makes you small. One of the bikers behind him cracked his knuckles. Another folded his arms. The manager's defiance drained from his face. He muttered something under his breath and stormed out, the door slamming behind him. The diner remained frozen until an old man in the corner began to clap. One slow, deliberate clap after another. Then another person joined in. And another. Until the whole room filled with the sound of hands coming together, not for violence, but for courage. Mara stood there, tears streaking her face. "Thank you," she whispered. Rex shook his head. "Don't thank me. Just promise yourself this, don't go back to being afraid." From that day on, everything changed. Word of what happened spread through Maple Ridge before sundown. The town that once feared Rex Malone began to see him, and his brothers, differently. They weren't outlaws anymore. They were protectors. Mara quit the diner and found a new job at a cafe across town where kindness wasn't a stranger. Sometimes Rex stopped by. He'd take his usual seat by the window, sip his coffee, and ask how she was doing. Her smile was different now, real, unshaken, free, but the truth was, Rex was the one who'd been changed. For years, he'd carried guilt like a chain, guilt for not being there for someone he once loved, for watching another bruise fade into memory without doing anything. Helping Mara didn't erase the past, but it gave it meaning. It was as if, for the first time in years, he'd found a way to breathe without the weight of regret pressing on his chest. The men in his club noticed it too. The laughter came easier. The anger softened. Soon, Rex and his crew began organizing charity rides, fundraisers for women's shelters, food drives for families, repairs for broken homes. The town started calling them the Guardians. It made Rex smile. Months later, as the sun sank behind the mountains, Mara stood outside her new cafe and watched a familiar line of motorcycles roll past. The leader raised a hand, just once, a silent greeting, a promise. She waved, her heart full. Sometimes, she thought, the kindest souls are the ones who've seen the darkest nights. And as the roar of the engines faded into the distance, Maple Ridge remembered that morning, not for the thunder of steel and engines, but for the silence that followed, when kindness spoke louder than fear. Moral and outro: if this story touched your heart or reminded you that true strength lies not in power but in compassion, share it. Because somewhere out there, someone needs to be reminded that even the toughest hearts can still be kind.